Look what just showed up. Right here's the Addmotor Soletan M-66X fat tire moped style e-bike. It's comfortable, it's got retro 70s styling, and it's really orange. Today I'm gonna check out all of the features, go for a ride, and see what this comfortable electric cruiser is all about. So Addmotor's been around for a while, and I actually know them more for their line of electric trikes. This is a 1970s moped style fat tire step-through e-bike. It's got a 750 watt motor, a top speed of around 22 miles per hour, and a huge comfortable seat right here that can actually fit more than one person. Now, if you're new to the world of e-bikes, you might be wondering what the heck is the big deal with these things. An electric bike can offer more flexibility and speed than a regular bike. You can travel longer distances and tackle hills without getting tired. And you can get to your destination more quickly. So you may end up using your bike for transportation and not just recreation. So I primarily make videos about cars on this channel. You might be wondering why I've started making some videos about e-bikes. Last year, I picked up a used electric cargo bike, and after using it for a few months, it totally transformed the way I think about transportation. Depending on where you live, an e-bike can replace your car for some trips and can be an economical alternative to driving. A bike like this could be useful for city commuting, beach cruising, getting around campgrounds, or just riding around the neighborhood with your family. Now, there are a ton of different types of e-bikes. Folding, cargo, commuters, cruisers, and these moped-style bikes. And a huge range of prices from super cheap bikes with questionable build quality to high-end bikes with the best quality components. And there are a ton of these rear-drive fat tire bikes on the market. Now, there are certainly some benefits to a fat tire bike, but there are also a few negatives. The cons are that they're usually very heavy, and that means they're not exactly all that efficient. They also aren't usually super nimble. But there are also some noticeable positives as well. I think the biggest advantage with these huge fat tires is they do a great job at soaking up bumps, providing a very comfortable ride. And if you actually want to ride on the beach, the fat tire is pretty much the only way you'll be able to do it. So this e-bike was shipped to me in a large box, and the assembly process was pretty straightforward. If you can hold a wrench and you've got like 30 to 45 minutes, you can get this thing up and running pretty easily. All right, so let's do a quick walk around of this bike. So what do you think of the style here? I think it's pretty interesting. I dig this sort of throwback to the 1970s with the moped influenced silhouette, but it has a step-through frame which makes it easy to get on and off of. It's available in a bunch of different colors, and I went with this bright orange to make it a bit more visible to people driving cars that may not be looking out for bikes. So the motor is a Bafang 750 watt rear mounted hub motor. It's got 80 Newton meters of torque, which is higher than some other bikes that I've tested. And this is the same style motor you'll see on countless other fat tire e-bikes. It's got a 20 amp hour battery, which if you do the math, that translates to 960 watt hours, which is the same as the Super 73 S2 that I recently tested. It should hopefully provide us with a good amount of range. One thing to note, the key for this bike only locks the battery. It does not lock the ignition, though there is a sort of hidden button on the battery for power on and off, and we'll talk more about all of this in a bit. So Addmotor estimates that we'll get 105 miles of range in pedal assist level 1. Chances are with this bike, you'll use the throttle quite a bit, which will mean actual range will be a lot less, but we'll test that. This is sold as a Class 2 bike, but the top speed is listed at 22 miles per hour, which would put it just beyond a Class 2 bike. This bike weighs in at a hefty 84 pounds and can carry 300 pounds max. It's got a Shimano 7-speed drivetrain, which is the one that's commonly found on bikes at this price point. There's actually 7 pedal assist modes, 1 being the least amount of power sent to the motor, 7 being the highest. And there's also a twist throttle on the right side, and there's a button to turn off the throttle to comply with laws or restrictions for e-bikes in some areas. In terms of brakes, we've got 180 millimeter rotors front and rear, but they are cable operated, not hydraulic. Now, I don't normally suggest cable operated brakes on a bike this heavy and quick, but we'll test these out and see how well they do when we ride. This is a full suspension bike, which should make it a pretty comfortable cruiser, and you can adjust the suspension in the front. And of course, we'll check out the comfort when we ride this thing. Up front, we've got handlebars that offer a good amount of adjustability, which is helpful because the seat is fixed. There are no adjustments there. And speaking of the seat, we've got a gigantic, wide, cushy seat, which can accommodate 2 people. I've even seen 3 on this bike, but that might might very well put it over the 300-pound weight limit. And there are built-in foot pegs in the back for your passenger, which is pretty cool. Speaking of resting your feet, up front is a footrest for the times that you're not pedaling, though it does seem a bit high, but we'll test that out when we ride it. We've got 20-inch by 4-inch fat Kenda tires. We've got metal fenders front and rear, no flimsy plastic fenders that you see on a lot of cheaper e-bikes. It's got a pretty standard display. It's actually the same one that I have on my Rad Power bike. The controls are pretty straightforward and easy to use. We've got a headlight, taillight, a brake light, and turn signals in the rear, which is really nice. We've also got a horn and a bell, which is a good addition. And if you've got cargo, there's not really anywhere to put it, though Addmotor does sell a rear rack for $70. So this bike is a fair amount different than the other two bikes that I reviewed recently. Those had cargo racks and this one does not. So I'm not really going to use it for errands or anything like that. Today I'm just going cruising and hopefully we'll find out how comfortable and how useful this bike actually is. Let's go. So as I mentioned, we've got a 750 watt hub motor here and it does a really good job at getting you up to speed. There is a good amount of torque to get you moving pretty quickly. And there's 7 levels of pedal assist that allows you to go from a snail's pace all the way up to the estimated 22 miles per hour. We're actually coming up to a hill right here, so let's see how it does on this grade. All right, so I'm coming to a stop here and I'm gonna just give it full throttle and see how it does. Yeah, it's actually not that bad. Don't have to pedal. It does a lot better than some of the folding bikes that I've tried. Definitely a good amount of torque to allow you to get up hills. All right, so why don't we do a speed test? Let's see how fast we can get this thing going. It's very flat right here. This is a perfect place to test it out. Nobody's around. Okay, so yeah, it looks like about 23 miles per hour is my top speed. That's about as fast as I can get this machine to travel. That's a pretty decent clip. So this is rated as a class 2 bike, which technically should only be able to go 20 miles per hour. So we're a touch faster than that here, assuming my speedometer is correct. Yeah, and according to my GPS, yes, we did go 23 miles per hour. So unlike some other e-bikes, this thing cannot be unlocked to be a class 3. So you can't do 28 miles per hour like some of those class 3 bikes. So this is a bit more of a cruiser than a commuter. And I think I'm fine with that. And I should keep in mind that we don't have hydraulic brakes here. So I think lower speeds is probably a better choice for the amount of brake we have available. The brakes do work really well, but like all cable brakes, you really should check and adjust these on a regular basis. I'm glad they're 180 millimeters instead of the smaller 160 millimeters you see on some of these e-bikes, but you do usually see hydraulic brakes on a bike this heavy. So one nice thing that we have here is that 7-speed Shimano gear set. It shifts really nicely and it gives us a few more options in terms of propelling this thing forward. You know, that Super 73 S2 that I tested a couple months back only gave you 1 gear, so this is kind of nice to have 7. Though I will say, once you start pedaling and getting up to speed, the pedals become a whole lot less useful. So being a moped style bike, it's not exactly the most efficient pedaling position. This is a bike that you're probably going to spend most of your time just using the throttle. So yeah, just take advantage of that big battery, rest your feet right up here on that footrest, and just sit back and let the motor do all of the work. Though I do feel it's a little bit more comfortable to just rest your feet on the pedals. I'm 6'3", and maybe if you're a bit shorter, this footrest might be perfect for you. So yeah, at 84 pounds, this is a heavy bike, but that does help a bit in terms of giving it a secure and stable feel. It also has a longer wheelbase than some of the folding e-bikes that I've been riding recently. And this really does feel a whole lot more like a moped than it does a bike. Now, in terms of security, the one thing you should keep in mind is that the keys for this bike are only used to lock and unlock the battery from the frame. So there's no key for the ignition here. The button to turn on the battery is hidden right under here, but it can still be turned on without a key. Now, with any e-bike, I always suggest using a high quality, heavy duty chain lock. Okay, so let's talk comfort, and I think this is an area where this bike really excels. So this seat, while it's not the best for pedaling, it's super comfortable when it comes to throttle-only riding, which is what I've basically been doing with this bike. It's been super easy to spend the whole day on this thing. And you've got a lot of adjustability in the handlebars, so I think most riders can find a comfortable position to ride here. And the suspension does a fantastic job of soaking up the bumps. There are some pretty serious bumps on the roads that I've been on today, and it really does smooth everything out. And I'm sure that these super fat, gigantic 4-inch tires are really helping out in this regard too. But in terms of comfort, I kind of wish I wasn't carrying my backpack full of camera gear and my bike lock. And I'm wearing that, of course, because there's not really any storage solutions here. So I think that I should probably opt for that rear rack so I can put my gear on the back of this bike rather than carrying it. So in terms of range, I've been riding this on mostly flat terrain, using mostly throttle only, just a little bit of pedaling. It is a touch windy today, but not that bad. And I'm on track to get about, I think, 30 to 35 miles of range, which is pretty good. But of course, actual range depends on a number of factors: terrain, weather, riding style, your weight, etc., how many passengers you have on the back of this thing. So it can vary quite a bit. But overall, I'm really digging this thing, especially because it's just so dang comfortable. Okay, so let's talk price. This Soletan M-66X comes in at just under $2,100 from the Addmotor store, but it looks like Amazon might be the place to pick up this bike as it's available for $17.99 there. Yeah, you can get cheaper moped style e-bikes, but many of them use cheaper components. So the only real downsides that I can find here are kind of nitpicks. Yeah, I wish it were a little bit faster. I'd love to see hydraulic brakes, but that's pretty much it. This is a super comfortable cruiser, great to take to the beach or to the campground, or just riding around the neighborhood with your kids. So what do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching. If you like this video and you want to see more like it, please consider subscribing and hitting that bell icon. So what do you think? Should I keep doing e-bike reviews on my channel? I think I'm going to, because I've really been enjoying riding these things lately. It's been a really nice addition to my fleet of terrible cars. If you want to help support the channel, please consider buying a Hello Road t-shirt at helloroad.tv/shop. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you're well, and I'll see you soon.